There's a fly in the room and I'm going to lose my mind. Where are the cats? Come get the sky raisin. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Crue Trime. Crue Trime. I'm having a hard time thinking of ways to say Crue Trime today. If you are new here, hi! My name is Sarah, and what I do here is tell you a terrible story to ruin your day and put on my makeup at the same time. Why? Because we like it, that's why. So if that sounds like fun to you, you are in the right place. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications, and then that way you will never miss one of my terrible stories. Hold on to your butts, friends, because today's story starts with a man, a hatchet, and a whole lot of, is he serious? So let's rewind to the early 2010s. It's when going viral meant a little bit more than just, dancing on TikTok. YouTube was still in its chaotic golden age. February 2013 in Fresno, California, a local news station was interviewing this hippie hitchhiker dude in a bandana. You guys remember this guy, right? This one was so good. Do you remember this?
So I ran up behind him with a hatchet, smash, smash, smash.
Do you remember how popular these type of things were? There was like something would happen in the community and the news would appear and interview some character.
So had your kids, had your wife.
And it would be remixed into a catchy song.
Had your kids, had your wife, had your kids, had your wife.
It was a ringtone.
Double rainbow all the way across the sky.
You'd share it with your friends, your family. You'd quote it all the time. Do you remember this? This was a great time for YouTube. So we're gonna talk about this guy today, and this is a crazy story. So let's get right into it. This is the story of Caleb Mcgillvary. Okay, now before we get too far into the story, I just wanna remind you that if you are curious about what makeup I'm using in today's video, then just look down in the description box because everything is linked. So this all started on February 1st, 2013 in Fresno, California. A man named Jet Simmons McBride, well, this guy drove his car into a PG&E utility worker, and then he started attacking a bystander. Witnesses at the scene say that McBride was yelling crazy stuff like he's Jesus Christ and he can do whatever he wants, and he was also yelling racial slurs, and he was strangling this woman. Enter Kai from stage left. So 25-year-old Caleb Lawrence Mcgillvary, although he goes by Kai, because of course he does. Kai is like the guy that you met at a skate park who tells you that he used to live in a yurt and wrestled a coyote for a burrito. Well, Kai was homeless by choice, home free, he called it. He was a self-proclaimed free spirit, not unhoused, just unbothered. He floated from place to place, from couch to couch, from highway on-ramp to local coffee shop, soaking in experiences and weed like a sponge in a bong. Is that a thing? No. Kai had been hitchhiking, of course, and he was picked up by this man, Jet McBride. And at some point, Jet started going nuts, saying crazy stuff, how he's Jesus Christ and he needs to rid the earth of all the black people. Not the word he used. And then he drove his car into a parked utility truck, pinning a worker between the bumper and the truck. So a woman that was nearby ran over to try and help, but Jet, in his crazed state, got out of the car and started choking her out. When all this is happening, Kai is in the passenger seat of this car, and he's watching this scene get worse and worse, and seeing Jet, wailing on this poor woman, Kai had to intervene. So, armed with his trusty hatchet, Kai ran up behind this guy and he brought the thing down on McBride's head not once, not twice, but 3 glorious times, each accompanied by this now iconic battle cry.
Smash! Yeah.
Just like that, we had our vigilante. Not only did he put himself in danger to protect a total stranger, danger stranger, well, Kai seemed to have a heart of gold.
Before I say anything else, I want to say no matter what you've done, you deserve respect. Even if you make mistakes, you're lovable. And it doesn't matter your look, skills, or age, or size, or anything, you're worthwhile. No one could ever take that away from you.
So this is the kind of person who would come to your rescue and then ask you, do you have any peanut butter or a place to crash? The local news outlet KMPH interviewed Kai at the scene. The resulting video was internet gold. It had everything: a dramatic rescue, a wild, charismatic weirdo, a catchphrase that slapped harder than the hatchet. He was a lovable stoner who stood up for someone. So the clip, this interview clip, spread like herpes at Burning Man. Kai became a walking meme. And this is before they were called memes, I think, right? Twitter was obsessed. Reddit crowned him the new king of chaotic good. So people started calling him the Hatchet-Wielding Hitchhiker.
That woman was in danger. You can snap a woman's neck like a pencil stick. So I started smashing in the head. Smash, smash, smash.
And of course, the internet wanted more. He had groupies, fan art, and he even got flown out to LA to be on Jimmy Kimmel Live.
Well, welcome, Kai. Welcome. How are you?
Excellent. How about yourself?
Which, for the record, his appearance on Jimmy Kimmel was, he bombed it, but we'll come back to that. But here's the thing that nobody wanted to say out loud. You know, while we were busy laughing at this hitchhiker with a hatchet, nobody stopped to ask, should we maybe not be idolizing someone who just brained someone with a camping tool? Well, before he was swinging hatchets and yelling catchphrases like a stoner Paul Bunyan, Caleb Mcgillvary was just a weird little Canadian kid growing up in the kind of environment that makes you either really into crystals or really into screaming at park benches. Caleb Lawrence Mcgillvary was born on September 3rd, 1988 in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, to Shirley and Gil Mcgillvary. I'm not clear if his name was Gil Mcgillvary or if that was like a shortened name for his last name. Weird. Anyway, Caleb's early childhood wasn't exactly like this warm and fuzzy Hallmark special that you'd hope for. His parents divorced when he was about 4 years old, and his home life was pretty troubled. And by the time he was a teenager, his relationship with his parents, especially his mother, had completely disintegrated. According to Caleb, he was the victim of serious childhood abuse, including sexual abuse at the hands of a relative. You know, trauma that he would later cite as the root of his deep distrust for authority, for institutions, and, you know, reality as a concept. He also claimed that he was forcibly institutionalized as a teen, including a stint at a psych ward in Alberta, where he says he was heavily medicated against his will. Now, his parents have differing accounts of Caleb's behavior growing up. His mom said that he always kind of had behavior problems, like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and Caleb's father was actually like really religious, and he blamed Caleb's behavior on him not giving his life to the Lord, whatever the fuck that means. So yeah, childhood trauma, check. Anti-authority streak, check. Hatred of the system, mega check. So after bouncing around group homes and psychiatric facilities, Caleb legally emancipated himself as a teenager. Then he did what most traumatized, unsupervised teens with a grudge against society do. He ran away. He hit the road. So Caleb reinvented himself as Kai, this home-free nomad, not homeless. He made that distinction a lot, and you'd better believe he'd correct you if you got it wrong. Kai wasn't a vagrant. He was a free spirit, a guitar-strumming, weed-smoking, couch-surfing anarchist, and an affinity for public urination. He did it a lot. And Kai was actually very intelligent. Like, you can really tell when he's, you know, talking about stuff. He's got brains and thoughts in there, but he's just so on a different level. He's existing somewhere else. But he believed in love, peace, and smashing the patriarchy with blunt objects. Literally. You know, he kept a hatchet in his backpack, not because he wanted to hurt anybody, he would insist, but, you know, you never know when you need to chop wood or save a woman from a racist maniac. So Kai spent the next few years just drifting across North America, hitchhiking from province to state, crashing on strangers' sofas, doing odd jobs, and telling everybody, you know, within a 10-foot radius how society was broken. He documented his travels through hand-scrawled journals, YouTube videos, and Facebook rants that read like a Unabomber manifesto. You know, if it had been ghostwritten by a guy who had just taken 3 edibles and fell down a Reddit hole. Is that what we call it? But to most people, you know, he was harmless. A quirky, shaggy-haired philosopher with a dirty backpack and a big heart. To others, he was unstable, paranoid, and teetering dangerously close to the edge. Either way, he didn't seem to care. He was out there doing his own thing, unbothered and unattached, until that one fateful day in Fresno, when a lunatic decided to run over somebody with his car, and Kai, with his trusty hatchet and ragtag vibe, did the thing that made him famous. But as we now know, that hero moment didn't come out of nowhere. It was born from years of trauma, rage, and isolation. And while the internet was busy turning him into a pop culture icon, nobody really stopped to ask, is he okay? Spoiler alert, he wasn't. So, like I said, Kai's news interview went mega viral. Jimmy Kimmel flew him out to LA to do a guest spot on his show, which was a chaotic mess.
The phileo towards Sophia is necessarily mine as it is an experience. If you're speaking Greek,
Which I think you might be right now.
The thing about Kai was that he wasn't just a free spirit. He was an exhausting frenzy of chaotic energy with no boundaries and no self-control. They talked to the producers for these TV shows and stuff that were trying to feature him. He was out there.
Dude, that guy was fucking cooked out, man.
Remember I mentioned that he liked to pee on things? When he got to the Jimmy Kimmel show, he immediately peed on the signage. He peed a lot of places. Anyway, Kai also drank heavily. He smoked everything but his shoes. He pissed on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, right on Julio Iglesias' star, in broad daylight, by the way. He also did not care at all about material things. If people gave him money, he gave it to people on the street. If he saw somebody that had what he perceived as less than him, he would give them whatever little he had. And the dude only had a backpack and a hatchet, I guess. No phone, no ID, no cares. Meanwhile, the vultures of reality TV saw dollar signs. They were all climbing over each other to give him his own TV show. But the kid was such a wackadoo. The deals fell apart before they could go anywhere. But Kai, definitely rode the wave as long as he could, playing concert gigs. He was actually a decently talented musician.
I've never seen a beauty like you before. A breathless kiss through the door. You got that shiny light of flight in your eyes. You're the sunset that brings the twilight.
Very campfire vibes, upbeat, fun, happy. But Kai was a rolling stone that gathers no moss. So after a few weeks of chaotic press appearances up and down the West Coast, Kai did what Kai did best. He drifted, or rolled away, whatever metaphor I'm using. So fast forward a few months and hop over to the East Coast. On May 12th, 2013, police in Clark, New Jersey responded to a welfare check at the home of a 73-year-old attorney named Joseph Galfy Jr. So Galfy wasn't some shady back alley dude. He was a respected, retired military veteran and partner at a local law firm. But he had not shown up to work, and when a friend came by to check on him, they'd noticed that the last couple days worth of newspapers were still on his porch, but he wasn't answering the door or any phone calls. Ruh-roh. Well, once the police got inside, his home was essentially undisturbed. It didn't look like it had been robbed or something, but they did find Galfy's body sprawled on his bedroom floor. He was dead, obviously, and not peacefully in his sleep, kind of dead. Beaten beyond recognition, kind of dead. His head and face was bruised, broken, just blood. The autopsy would later show he had multiple blunt force injuries, 3 skull fractures, and 4 broken ribs. In short, somebody beat the ever-loving shit out of this man. He had not been beaten with a gun or a object of some kind. This was a personal, up-close, angry situation. This was hatchet level rage, except no hatchet. So the cops started doing what cops do, retracing steps. So they checked Joseph's phone records, surveillance footage, all that stuff, and jackpot. They found text messages between him and Kai Lawrence, aka Caleb Lawrence Mcgillvary. Our hatchet-wielding hitchhiker turned internet god of chaos.
I'm Kai.
So when the police looked at Kai's Facebook page, they found kind of a weird post from that morning. It said, quote, "What would you do if you woke up with a crusty, droopy-eyed stranger who drugged you in your sleep?" I mean, it certainly seemed, however weird and far-fetched, that Kai was the last person that was seen with Joe Galfy. But something wasn't right, you know? Had there been some kind of altercation? Did Kai do that to Joe?
Yeah.
Well, that Facebook post he made sure seemed to indicate that there might be a motive, so police issued a warrant. And photos of Kai started to circulate in the media with headlines like, "From hero to homicide, the Hatchet Hitchhiker wanted for murder." So on May 16th, 4 days after Joe Galfy's body was found, authorities finally caught up with Kai at a Greyhound bus station in Philadelphia. So he had been spotted earlier by a Starbucks employee who recognized him from TV and was like, hi, yeah, I think that fugitive hitchhiker guy from the news is in our store. A very short time later, police showed up and arrested Kai with like very little hubbub. He was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and held on $3 million bail and shipped off to the Union County Jail. And just like that, the internet's hatchet-wielding hitchhiker hero got smashed. You see what I did there? So once he was in police custody, Kai was pretty cooperative. You know, he told the police that he had met Joe Galfy a few nights earlier in Times Square. Well, Joe actually approached Kai saying, "Hey buddy, you look lost. Like, can I help you? And where are you headed?" And Kai told him, "Oh, I'm trying to go to New Jersey." And Joe told him, "Oh, I'm on my way there. Would you like a ride? I can give you a lift." I mean, according to Kai, Joe was very friendly and, you know, took him for a bite to eat and offered him a place to crash in his home. And at this point, Kai had been outside for like a week straight. He said yes, of course. Kai claimed that he and Joe Galfy were just hanging out at his home in Jersey, drinking some beers, watching some TV, whatever. But then he told the police that he woke up the next morning with like a metallic taste in his mouth and jizz on his face. Essentially, it seemed that he had been drugged and sexually assaulted. I mean, what the fuck, right?
It is f***ing gnarly, man.
Kai said that he did not confront him. He knew he was just gonna get out of there. So then Joe took Kai to the train station and bought him a ticket to Asbury Park, and then they hugged, and then Galfy walked off. Galfy. I keep saying his name wrong. I'm sorry. So hang on a second. So Kai woke up believing that this man had sexually assaulted him, but then the guy took him to a train station, bought him a ticket, and they hugged?
What?
It gets even more confusing because Kai went to Asbury Park, but then when his friends didn't like show up as expected, he called Joe back and asked him to come get him. You know, the creepy old man who had allegedly raped him the night before. I'm squinting. Well, Joe did go pick him up, bring him back to his house. They had dinner and beers again, and then Kai said that he got sleepy and woke up to this old man trying to pull off his pants. I mean, oh no, not again. There was a scuffle. Joe was throwing Kai around and manhandling him. Time out. 73-year-old, slightly overweight Joe Galfy was overpowering 25-year-old fit Kai Lawrence?
Sure, Jan.
Anyway, Kai admitted to beating up Joe and then running away from the house. Now, the story of Kai being assaulted is not something to take lightly. You know, if true, it's horrific. But the evidence doesn't exactly line up. According to people who knew Joe Galfy well, he was a kind-hearted, mild-mannered person who liked to help people. Did he maybe have an affinity for picking up young male transients? Maybe. We don't really know, but based on the actual evidence, Kai had no defensive wounds from an attack, and Joe had no defensive wounds, so it looked like he had been attacked in his sleep. His wounds indicated that his head had been like stomped in. There was no evidence of drugs, and Kai's version of self-defense looked a lot like a rage explosion.
Smash!
Galfy had been beaten with a level of violence that screamed overkill. This wasn't a scuffle, okay? There was 3 skull fractures and 4 broken ribs. This was smash on steroids. Some people speculate that perhaps Joe Galfy was cruising Times Square for maybe sex workers. Maybe Kai did what he needed to do to get around. Maybe. speculation.
I can't call it.
Anyways, by the time Kai was hauled into court, shackled and looking like the backup bassist in a Rage Against the Machine cover band, the vibe had shifted. Gone were the smash, smash, smash t-shirts. Gone were the memes, and gone was the myth of this folk hero hitchhiker. Now he was just inmate number whatever, and he was facing first-degree murder charges. From the jump, this was no ordinary trial. It took nearly 6 years for the case to even reach trial. Why? Because Kai spent those years doing everything except cooperate with his lawyers. He fired multiple public defenders. He filed handwritten lawsuits against the police, the courts, the prosecutor, and humanity. He refused to shower or cut his hair for months on end. He claimed he was the victim of a vast conspiracy to silence him for knowing too much about the Illuminati. He even tried to act as his own attorney for a while, which went as well as you'd expect. Finally, in April of 2019, the trial began in Union County Superior Court. Prosecution's case was straightforward. Kai was a volatile, unhinged man with a messiah complex. There was no evidence of sexual assault. Galfi was left with devastating injuries, and the scene suggested that he was beaten in his sleep, not during a struggle. They pointed out that Kai never once tried to call the police, to go to a hospital, or tell anyone, allegedly, about what happened. Even after posting on Facebook about it, instead, he fled and hid and made vague internet posts while evading capture like the very crunchy Jason Bourne. The defense, meanwhile, leaned hard into Kai's claim of self-defense. They said that Galfi had taken advantage of Kai's homelessness and drugged him, that Kai woke up mid-assault and panicked. They claimed his reaction was trauma-fueled, a PTSD response from years of childhood abuse and sexual trauma. It could have worked if Kai had played it even remotely straight, but he didn't. In fact, he nuked his own defense in real time. Kai repeatedly interrupted court proceedings. He launched into rambling monologues. He accused the judge of being corrupt. And at one point, he called the prosecutor a perverted weirdo who was trying to gaslight him with fake science. So when Kai took the stand in his own defense, it went exactly as expected. He turned his testimony into a 90-minute TED Talk about police corruption, media lies, and how the CIA was trying to suppress his light energy.
A what now?
There were references to shadow governments and astrology and, of course, hatchets. I mean, the jury was aging in real time. In closing arguments, the prosecution made it simple. This was not self-defense, this was rage, this was personal, this was murder. On April 24th, 2019, after 4 weeks of courtroom chaos and very little actual lawyering, the jury returned a decision. Caleb Mcgillvary was guilty of first-degree murder. Kai didn't blink. He didn't flinch. He didn't move. He just smiled, like he knew something the rest of us didn't.
Whatever. It's all good.
He even threw up a peace sign to the cameras as he walked out of the room. At the sentencing, the judge did not mince words. They said, quote, "You are clever, cunning, and calculating. You used your celebrity to manipulate people, but you are also a cold-blooded killer." Then he hit Kai with the full weight, 57 years, with no eligibility for parole until he completes 85% of the sentence, which means that Kai, the once viral internet sensation, won't even see a parole board until 2061, where he'll be 73 years old, ironically the same age as the man he murdered. Karma's a boomer, I guess. And because no tale of millennial destruction is complete without a Netflix documentary, there is the Hatchet-Wielding Hitchhiker, a wild ride through Kai's rise and fall. It features viral clips, behind-the-scenes interviews, and plenty of people who realized way too late that a guy with a hatchet and a media platform wasn't a great combination.
Who's going to win this battle with the lumberjack?
So one particular takeaway, multiple people admitted that they ignored red flags because Kai was charismatic and marketable. He was a white-hot viral gold mine with a quirky look and a weird backstory. So the documentary actually paints a really clear picture that Kai's not just somebody who was a victim of trauma or even a loose cannon. He was somebody who thrived on attention, good or bad, and he would say and do anything to stay in the spotlight. The doc also makes it really clear that for all his charisma, he was pretty dangerous and he had a really long fuse until he didn't. Oh, and Kai hates the documentary. He lashed out from prison, calling it defamatory, libelous, and a total misrepresentation. In 2023, he actually filed a lawsuit against Netflix, also against the producers, the directors, basically anybody that was involved in the project. He claimed that the film was filled with lies and painted him as a cold-blooded killer, which, you know, the jury had already done that. But in May of 2025, a judge totally dismissed his lawsuit entirely. Caleb Lawrence Kai Mcgillvary went from couch surfing folk hero to convicted murderer in a matter of months. He was a viral icon turned cautionary tale. And somewhere out there, your mom is probably still sharing this clip.
Smash, 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 yeah, yeah.
And that is the story of Caleb Mcgillvary. Wild ride, wild ride. Again, if you want to know any of the makeup that I use in today's look, down in the description box because everything is linked. Also linked down there is a link to a Google Doc where if you want to recommend a Crue Trime story to me, you can fill it in with all the dirty details. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then consider subscribing to this channel before you leave today. I upload new videos here on YouTube every week, and you can follow me on all of the other socials as well. That is it for now. I will catch you next time in the next video. Bye! No eligibility with those lawyers. Blah, 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 blah. Might be true. We don't know. Hello? What? Hello? Oh my god. Kai started. Oh my god. Get it together. Where's the brush I wanna use?